how you guys doing? It's your boy Beastly back at it again with another video. This video is going to be Beastly yapping about college football. I know a lot of you guys are college football people. You watch me for my college football content, my live streams, whether you're in the Discord, on the videos. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. But we had a crazy weekend of college football, and I kind of feel obligated to make a video on this. So be sure to let me know your thoughts and opinions down below of this past weekend and how you feel about the controversies that we will discuss later into the video. But for starters, let's get these two things out the way. Shout out to Tulane and James Madison for A, making the playoff, and B, shout out to Duke, which I guess I can go ahead and scroll down for you guys too. Shout out to Duke for completing the impossible, which is to win the ACC with 5 losses. I find that really comical because I and many people have this running joke that the ACC should rebrand as the ASS because they are cheeks. They are awful. That conference is just disgusting. They are terrible. And the fact that an 8-5 team won the conference kind of speaks volumes. So Duke was never making the playoff, for the record. We'll get to that momentarily. But for some reason, there is these psychopaths out there that genuinely thought Duke with 5 losses would make the playoff, which just tickles me pink. But shout out to Duke for not just ending Virginia's season, but for extending Tulane and James Madison seasons. Awesome to them. Gonna give my, really brief thoughts and opinions real quick here. Again, no disrespect to these teams, but I'm gonna be honest, no one cares. Like just flat out, no one cares that Tulane won or James Madison won. And you can kind of tell no one cares, aside from those fans, of course, because I think one of them is a 17-point dog against their playoff opponent, and the other one's like a 22 or 24-point opponent. It's just, they're both just free. It's going to be slaughtering, right? Gonna obviously root for the underdog, but I don't see these two teams even sticking anywhere close to their opponents. So it's cool they won. It's cool Duke allowed them to extend their season. So shout out Duke, Tulane fans, and James Madison fans should be Duke supporters at this point onward. But yeah, no disrespect to these teams. They had great years. They did well in their conference, right? No disrespect, but it's a whole different atmosphere when you're playing, used car salesmen and McDonald's employees, and you elevate to, actual people who go pro. So RIP to these two teams. They are going to get spanked come playoff time, but hey, at least they made the playoffs, which is pretty cool, and shout out to Duke. The other game we're going to quickly discuss. Ohio State, Indiana. If you guys were in my live streams, you would know I did pick Ohio State for this game. I will take my L to the chin. I got this game wrong. However, in my humble opinion, as someone who's a fan of none of these teams, so I'm not biased in any way, shape, or possible, I don't think Indiana's win is sustainable. I don't think Indiana really won that game. I think Ohio State lost that game. You might be wondering, what does that mean? What's the difference, Beastly? The difference between you winning a game means you can replicate that. Meaning, if Indiana and Ohio State were to play 10 more times, I don't think Indiana's winning most of those 10 attempts. I think this was a very, again, don't want to use the word fluky, but there was a plethora of things that went against Ohio State in this game. We have the 19 or 18-yard extra point that got shanked that, would have put them into overtime. You have the 4th and 1 or 4th and 1.5. It was a tremendously long 4th and 1, and they went for a QB sneak, which is just stupid. You have the first interception of the game, which, in my opinion, should have been called DPI. It looked like, at least from my perspective, that DB got there a bit early, which jarred the ball in the air, which got picked. So that one is a bit finicky. You could argue that it wasn't DPI, but at least we can agree going for it or doing a QB sneak on 4th and 1.5 is dumb. And then shanking a 19-yard kick is also pretty dumb. And, there's other stuff too. Again, if you didn't watch the game, I welcome you to go watch the game. I believe it was Joe Klatt. I could be quoting the wrong guy here, but there was a sports announcer during the game, a broadcaster, and there was a play, I think it was number 79 or 75. There was basically an egregious play where the entire Indiana offensive line just straight up held the D-line for Ohio State. Like, all 5 of them could have been called for holding. And it was so funny. Again, I think it was Joe Klatt, but someone went back in replay because it was about to go to commercial and just started circling yellow dots of just the sheer PI or holding penalties. And it was pretty funny that occurred. So obviously, shout out to Indiana to winning the game. They won the game. There you go. All I'm saying is that I do believe if these two teams were to rematch, if they were to replay, I think Ohio State comfortably wins by like 15 to 20 points. Again, assuming their kicker doesn't shank a kick, assuming, they get some penalties where there were very obvious penalties and the refs just don't choke on the whistle, things will go differently. But hey, they lost. I'll give them their credit. I did pick the Ohio State Buckeyes to win that game. I was wrong. But again, if you're an Ohio State fan, don't have your heads held down. I know 10 points looks pretty bad, but again, Ohio State pretty much played their worst game of the season, and they lost by 3 points. So, versus the other team we're about to yap about, Georgia versus Bama. Now, if you weren't in my live streams, we were talking about this the night before the game, and I said I don't want to pick Bama, right? I picked Bama the first time they played just because Bama was hot. You know, Simpson was playing at a Heisman level caliber. They were doing great, and they had that streak. But if you've been watching Bama play over the last like 4, 5, 6 weeks, the game against South Carolina, they should have lost. The game against Auburn, they should have lost. And the game against Oklahoma, they did lose. But Bama's not played good. Whether they're playing good opponents or they're playing bad opponents, Bama just hasn't played good in several back-to-back-to-back weeks. So I had no faith going into this game if they could lock in and win the game. So a part of me wanted to pick Bama just to keep the streak going. But ultimately, like I said in my live stream, if Georgia blitzes Bama, Georgia will win by a blowout. Not sure if you guys are, again, how much you were paying attention to the game, but I believe it was the 3rd or 4th defensive snap of the game. Georgia sent 5 or 6. Ty Simpson got rocked, and from that point onward, the game was over. Bama, I don't know if it's a Ty Simpson problem. I don't know if it's an OC problem. I don't know if it's a head coach problem. I don't know whose problem this, ultimately falls on. But Auburn destroyed them against the blitz. Ty Simpson, again, I don't know whose fault it is. He can't block a blitz to save his life. There were, again, several times that Auburn game where they held them scoreless because they just blitzed on every meaningful down. 3rd and long, 3rd and short, 3rd and whatever, they blitzed, got sacked. Or if he didn't get sacked, he got hurried and threw a bad ball. This is not an Auburn thing. They've struggled with the blitz since South Carolina all that time ago, right? It's kind of crazy, just all the teams where it's like, wait a minute. He won't slide the line to the left or the right. He doesn't know what that does. And again, you can see how desperate it got towards the middle of the Georgia-Bama game. There was basically, DeBoer came out in a 5-wide set, or I'm assuming DeBoer calls the plays. I don't know who at Bama who actually calls the plays, but they came out in a 5-wide set, and they had 2 extra blockers. They had I believe it was either 2 tight ends or a running back and tight end on the left and right shoulder of both tackles, just to be like, hey, we're blocking 7. Please protect him. And homie still got sacked. Like, it doesn't matter how many people they block, they just can't block. It's really kind of funny just how bad Bama can pass pro this last like at least 5-6 weeks. So my prediction, if Georgia blitzes properly, it'll be a blowout. If Georgia doesn't blitz at all, they're going to lose. Georgia blitzed. That came through. Georgia put belt to ass. Congratulations, Georgia fans. You guys have finally got the monkey off your back. You finally got the boogeyman off your shoulder. I think I remember hearing the announcers say that it was like 17 years or 16 years since Bama lost an SEC championship game, which is just nutty that it's been that long. So Bama finally lost. But again, just like with Indiana, you got to like not put an asterisk next to their game. But again, with Georgia, I think we can all collectively agree this is the worst Bama team that they've had in a very long time. Like I think this DeBoer team is worse than pretty much every Saban team he's ever had at Bama, right? You could argue whether this DeBoer team is worse or better than last year's, right? The problem they had last year, Milroe couldn't throw the ball. He was basically a glorified running back at QB. But the problem is Simpson can't block a blitz. So, like, pick your poison. Either way, your QB's not going to do very well. So, hats off to Georgia. They finally got their get back. Bama, you got blown out by 21 points. We'll discuss that a bit later on into the video, but just an awful game. And I would like to say it was just an outlier performance of Bama just shitting the bed, but if you've watched the Bama games, you know just how lethargic they've looked on offense, except for that one receiver. What's his name? Bernard. He's the best receiver at Bama. I'm tired of hearing this Ryan Williams glazing. Ryan Williams has, like, I think not crossed 100 yards receiving in like 15 games. Or if he just barely crossed it by like 101. Ryan Williams is not that number one team's wide receiver. The Bernard guy is significantly better. He actually catches the ball consistently, which is kind of funny. But just Bama got beat. And we'll talk more about this ass whooping a bit later in the video. Next, BYU, Texas Tech. I will not be spending much time on this game because unfortunately they've already played this year, kind of like the Georgia-Bama game. However, unlike the Georgia-Bama game, the BYU-Texas Tech game, Texas Tech put belt to ass the first time, and they put belt to ass the second time. Now, obviously, BYU fans, you can feel however you want to feel about this game, but I think this is a very embarrassing look for both BYU and Penn State, because if you guys don't know, About a week or two ago, there was this controversy where Penn State was trying to pluck the coach from BYU, and Crumble Cookie and others kind of intervened saying, no, we like our coach. Well, your coach just shit the bed again against the same team again in I would argue the biggest game of your season. So the only analogy I can give is those, you're playing, whether it's kickball or football, on the playground at PE at your school, and you got those two final kids that haven't been picked yet for a team, and they're just beating the crap out of each other because they don't want to be like the last loser. That's kind of what this was. It's like, I don't really take Texas Tech seriously, and I don't take BYU seriously, and the fact that BYU and Penn State were arguing over like who wants this coach when dude's been blown out by the same team twice is kind of remarkable. But anyways, Texas Tech wins. They're in. There you go. We'll, again, cover this a bit momentarily, but not too big of a deal. Then we already covered Duke, Virginia. Funniest game of the weekend. 8-5 teams should not win your conference. The ASS is a horrible conference. And without a further ado, let's go hop into the bracket, because this is kind of the main reason why I made this video, is to yap about the actual bracket itself. So this is the playoff bracket. And very quickly, I'll cover the stuff again. I don't really have much disagreement here. Indiana, number 1, makes sense. They beat Ohio State, best team in the country. No big deal. Ohio State, 2, again, they lost to the best team in the country. I don't think 1 and 2 should be explained. 3, Georgia, they have more losses than Indiana and Ohio State, so they can't be 1 or 2. And no, Georgia is not going to be 4 because it's Texas Tech. They don't play in a real conference. So I think 1 through 4 makes complete sense with me. I have no gripes with 1 through 4. 5, Oregon, again, have no complaints. 6, Ole Miss, I really have no complaints, honestly, with any of this list until you get to the last couple slots. James Madison and Tulane. I talked about earlier. Thanks to Duke winning their ACC championship, it kind of messed a lot of stuff up, which allowed James Madison and Tulane to get in. Again, I know several people who's not going to agree with me, but it's just a fact. I get it. Everybody wants to root for the underdog, and I'm the same way. I root for the underdog. I like the underdog story. But we got to call a spade a spade. Oregon is going to destroy James Madison, and Ole Miss, even without their head coach, is going to destroy Tulane. I don't have the spread directly in front of me, but I remember someone saying on Twitter or YouTube or wherever it was that the spread was, I think, 17 or 18 points for James Madison, or maybe it was 22 points for James Madison. It was 17 for Tulane. Anyways, it's multiple possessions. It's not going to be close. They're going to get blown out, which really annoys me that, again, they did earn it by technicality, right? They did follow the rules, but you can't compare these fringe 1 to 3 star programs to these established, rosters filled with a shit ton of 4 and 5 star athletes. You can't. I get it. X's and O's are a big part of football. It really is. But the biggest thing of college football, and the reason why I don't really like college football as much as I like the NFL football, is the caliber of talent gap, right? The talent gap between Oregon and James Madison is so insane that I'm pretty sure any coach could go in there and win that game. You could pluck high school coaches and they could beat James Madison just because Oregon's roster is insane. Now, is Oregon's roster insane compared to other insane rosters like, Indiana or Ohio State? No. There's like levels to stuff. But the gap between Oregon and James Madison is insane. So, again, they deserved it. They followed the rules, right? Everything happened, but they're going to get destroyed. The problem of all these teams is Alabama. Alabama does not deserve to be in the playoffs. I don't care what you say. I don't want to hear, well, they play in the SEC. No, this has nothing to do with the video, but just to get the obligatory comments out the way. I'm a Florida Gator fan. My team won 4 games this year. I am Switzerland here. I am actually, you would think I would be biased towards the SEC, but I'm not. I am as neutral as it be. Alabama hasn't earned the playoff spot. They got embarrassed. But Beastly, they can't punish Bama for losing a conference championship game because last year, James Madison also lost, as I hear you aggressively typing. It's funny you mention that. So this is the game that everybody will always talk about. Oh, they can't punish Bama because James Madison lost the previous year. Yeah, they lost by 2 points to Marshall, which is that a great look? No, it's not a great look. But they were playing an extra game James Madison didn't need to play, and they lost in an extra game by 2 points. If that is the hill you want to die on, you can't compare Georgia absolutely blowing the back out of Bama by 21 points to James Madison choking by 2 points. You can't. They're not comparable. Georgia and Bama, equal levels of competition. I don't watch James Madison and I don't watch Marshall, but I would presume Marshall and James Madison are also very similar competition. So again, should James Madison have lost? No, they should have won. But they lost by 2 points. Whereas Bama and Georgia, again, that game should have been close. Bama could have lost by 3, 4, 7, 10, 12 points, and I think that's fine. But you lost by 21 points. You got blown out. You didn't gain your first down until the third quarter. Bama finished that game with -3 rushing yards. Alabama, the team that's made a NFL running back every year for the last 17 years. They couldn't run the ball. So don't miss me with that nonsense of, oh, well, you can't punish non-championship teams for losing. You can't do that. Because you know who also got snubbed? Brigham Young University. That's right. I learned what BYU stood for just for this YouTube video. Brigham Young University got snubbed. So you have to pick a lane. This is the other reason why I despise the committee and genuinely think a monkey could do better at picking playoff teams than those guys. If you're not going to punish James Madison, that's fine. If you're not going to punish Bama, that's fine. How in the world are you going to punish BYU? This doesn't make sense. Either you don't punish BYU, or if you do punish BYU, you punish Bama as well. Both teams, again, I don't watch BYU football. I don't watch Texas Tech football, but I would presume Texas Tech and BYU are similar caliber teams. Bama and Georgia are similar caliber teams. If Bama getting blown out didn't matter, BYU getting blown out also shouldn't matter. So this is the conversation's done. It's asinine that we're even having this debate. Also, I'm gonna spend time right here really quickly to about this. Notre Dame, don't open your mouth to me. Notre Dame fans, I have no problem with the people in my... Actually, I should probably put this at the beginning of the video, but I have no problems with anyone in my community with any team you have. I don't hate anyone as long as you're a reasonable person. But the insufferable Notre Dame fans who keep flexing their record, basically playing cupcakes. I could be wrong. I forget if this was a Miami stat or a Notre Dame stat. But I remember someone talking about how one of those two teams played 3 ranked opponents and lost 2 of them. I believe it was Notre Dame. You had 3 semi-tough games on your schedule and you lost 2 of them, I believe. Might be Miami, but either way. Notre Dame, you're not in this conversation. You're not in a conference. You don't get a conference bonus, right? You played cupcakes. No. You deserve what you got. If you want to fix that problem, join a conference. Simple as that. You can't flex we're independent and then cry about also getting punished for being independent. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But so yeah, that's just small yapping there. So yeah, this playoff bracket, I have no problems with any of it except for Bama being there. Bama shouldn't be there. Bama has looked awful the last several weeks of the regular season. Bama looked awful. I would argue Bama was the worst team in conference championship weekend. You can take your pick between, Texas Tech putting belt to ass against BYU or Bama getting belt to ass against Georgia. But either way, Bama didn't play well. And I would like to say, oh, well, it's just a bad game. But Bama's been playing poorly over and over and over. And I also think it's kind of funny that more or less this has to do with money. I heard somewhere, whether it was a TikTok or something, that Bama being put in made millions of dollars in, I think, ESPN revenue sales, or it was some TV network made a bunch of money off Bama getting in. And I'm like, oh, now that makes sense. Why they punish BYU for getting blown out and not Bama, because, of course, money. Or, as I will call it on this channel, and what I've been calling it my entire life, but unfortunately I've only been doing college content in the last several months, it's called the Bama tax. And if you don't know what the Bama tax is, the Bama tax is basically anytime the committee has to manually override something because of, Nick Saban. So Bama could have a horrible record. Bama could have all these things go against them, but they will still somehow find a way, whether it was the 4-team playoff, whether it was the 12-team playoff, they'll find some way of just shoving them in there because it's the Nick Saban tax. The fact that we are still paying the Nick Saban tax 4 or 5 years after he's been retired is crazy. It's insane. So yeah, this is going to be the end of my yapping. Let me know in the comments down below if you think Bama does deserve it. And if you are a Bama fan, be honest with me. Do you think Bama deserved it? Because I would be willing to bet most people, like my father, who are Bama fans, could look themselves in the eye and say, Bama, we didn't deserve this. We don't. We looked awful. We've been awful. We didn't deserve it. But I also can't wait to read the obligatory, oh, you don't know ball comments down below. But that will be the end of this video. I appreciate each and every single one of you beautiful bastards, and I will see you in the next one. Deuces.